Alrighty. Section 3 for Gapminder, animating data. This is probably the part that they're most famous for. These graphs with the bubbles that kind of move around as time progresses. It's like the video you saw in this week's hook, and each one of these bubbles indicates a country. The color shows you what part of the world it's from. The size of the bubble shows you how many people live there, and then you can compare different types of measurements. The one you saw on Monday on the hook was comparing income per person to life expectancy. So as a country starts to develop and they get more and more wealth, they get more income per person. Does that then also mean that they're getting healthier? And the trend is yes, that's true. But the data is really, really interesting. So let's take a quick look. It says animating data, get the proportions right and realize the macro trends that will shape the future. Okay, so we pop in here. And what's really cool is that you have access to all of the data that this group has compiled. And you can change what's being measured on each axis. So here's income versus life expectancy, but we can change what we're measuring and looking at. If looking at this chart and messing with the data is really confusing and overwhelming for you, let me show you just what to do by clicking play over here. I'm not sure if you guys can see this. Let me just move it out of the way. Um, if you click this little play button, it will start back in the 1800s, and you'll be able to see the world develop economically. So you can kind of like say, okay, there goes the UK, right? United Kingdom was the first country to go through the Industrial Revolution. Oh, look, there's the United States right behind them. Oh, the United States kind of got out in the head there. It's like a little bit of a race. A couple of cool things you can do on this. You can actually click on a country, click on two countries, and then you can back it up. So you can compare those two countries. And now it's going to have a line. And so you're going to see those two countries' lines. You can actually go forward. You can see the United States and the UK, the United Kingdom, have been tracking pretty closely for the entire time. The other ones you can compare, of course, would be like China is the big one, right? India, just you can mess around with this. So before I get into more of the details about how to mess around with the data, if you're overwhelmed by this chart, feel free just to click the play button and kind of just watch it. And then also come down here and watch some of these videos. This is a really short, like 2 or 3 minute video that we kind of watch something similar about income or wealth related to life expectancy or health. Here's some really interesting information about world population or poverty and wealth. And then this one I thought was really interesting too. So this is fertility per person. So how many babies per woman, and how's that changing? Or you can check out these things too. Anyway, back to this one. So if you're overwhelmed by this, feel free to watch some of the videos or click on the things down below. If you're excited to get into this data and really just kind of mess around with it, take a look and see what you can do. I want to keep income here for the time being, but I want to change this to be something to do with the environment. So I'm going to come down here to environment, and then you can do things like material footprint per capita. So that's the amount of raw materials that are used, right? So how much waste or how much, just like what's your footprint. The one I want to do is emissions. And so I'm going to do CO2 emissions per person. Okay, so now it's gathering the data for that. And we can now go back in time and we can look at rates of CO2 emissions as it's related to income. So we're here at 1840. The United Kingdom, the United States, they're starting to develop more, but now they're also starting to pollute more, right? Here's India, and let's see, do we have China on there yet? China hasn't joined us yet. But we can see that as we developed, we were also polluting more. I wonder if there's a way to unclick on the countries that I've clicked on. I want to see all the data, not just that one. Oh, trails. I got to come over here to trails and take them off. Sweet. And then I'm going to fast forward a little bit. So here comes 1900. And you can see there is a trend line, right? Most of the countries, as they develop economically, as they become wealthier, they also are polluting more. But you can also look at outliers. I know you guys are doing this in math. So let's see if there's one that's surprisingly wealthy, but not polluting very much. I guess the one you'd come to would be Kuwait or Brunei. So those are the ones that are very wealthy because they have large oil reserves. So that's not really helping. Um, yeah, for the most part, there's a pretty direct correlation between development and and CO2 emissions. There's a trend line in this data. When we get to here, we can start to see some of the outliers. Yeah, so this is the one I was thinking of, Costa Rica. We saw that as an example in last week's work. And so we were noticing that Costa Rica was fairly wealthy, right? Not super rich, but at the same time, fairly well off as a country. And yet they're producing much less carbon dioxide than, say, Palau. What's this one? Trinidad and Tobago. Interesting. Or Bulgaria. So, like, this is a pretty direct comparison. Belarus and Costa Rica are both about exactly the same wealth, except Belarus is producing a lot more CO2 per person. Okay, that's one of the ways you can use this. I want to do one other thing, and instead of searching by income by itself, I want to search by uh, inequality. Let's see, where do I find that one? Sustainability, income like affecting child mortality. Let me search for Gini coefficient. Yeah, here we go. Inequality index. It's called the Gini coefficient. So you can look at inequality within a country, and we can see maybe is there a trend between more inequality? So this would be more unequal over here. As countries become more equal, do they start to produce less? So I didn't see much of a relationship. It looks like it's kind of scattered. Okay, so that's how you use this data. After you mess around with it for a while, post any surprises to the Padlet below, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.